There are a lot of words and phrases that get thrown around on the internet when one tries to talk about shows or comics or anything with a narrative that spans multiple entries. And filler is one of those words. According to TV tropes, filler episodes are defined as, quote, entries in a generally continuous serial that are unrelated to the main plot, don't significantly alter the relations between the characters, and generally serve only to take up space. This could be considered padding, applied to a whole franchise, close quote. And obviously this definition blows in the breeze. It's not a concrete definition. Seems like everybody has their own definition of what filler means. Let's talk about TV shows. When an episode kind of steers in a different direction and explores some previously unexplored territory in a series, is that considered filler? Or when an episode takes a character down their own path, which might not necessarily impact the overall story, is that considered filler too? It's often said that filler episodes can be plucked out of the main narrative and nothing would be lost. The story would go on without missing a beat. And sure, yeah, absolutely. I mean, yeah, there's a ton of episodes like that, right? But does that automatically make it bad? Is that a negative thing? I mean, maybe from a completely utilitarian A to B mindset, that's something to look for, right? That's something to be upset about when something deviates from the straight shot of beginning to end. But it seems like the term filler is often incorrectly used as a synonym for boring. It's just one of those words that people hear, they repeat it. Like this guy from Good Will Hunting. This guy is the personification of YouTube. I think the most topical example, at least in Star Wars, is the latest arc from the Clone Wars with Ahsoka and those two sisters. Was the arc repetitive? Yes. I'm not here to talk about whether or not it was good. This is about calling something filler, which I heard a shitload of people calling this filler. So when you have an arc with maybe 4 episodes or so in that arc, you don't know where it's going. After the first episode, you might hear, that was filler. That didn't do anything. That went nowhere. But then the audience begins to see the puzzle pieces come together with subsequent episodes. And by the end of the arc, it's revealed that Maul is behind a lot of this stuff. There's some Mandos watching Ahsoka, and it all comes together. Not every single episode of a show is going to immediately point straight at the finish line. Not every single episode of a show needs to point straight at the finish line. Sometimes it's good to take a breather and explore some side quests. You learn a little bit about the characters we're hissing at or rooting for. We see how they handle certain situations that might not impact the overall linear narrative, but might foreshadow how they'll handle future situations, right? You know, not straying even a little bit from the linear narrative kind of feels like playing Red Dead Redemption and never doing any side quests. I mean, sure, you can do it, but goddamn, you're missing out on a lot of fun exploration. And if you want to get super hippy-dippy with all this bullshit, we all got a lot of shit from our past, a lot of filler in our lives, in our day-to-day experiences that fit into the overall narrative, that fit into this linear birth-to-death existence, right? And maybe that's an eye-rolly statement to apply to storytelling, but I think it fits. It's how we learn motivations. You might learn what makes a character tick in episodes and story arcs that don't necessarily impact the main vein. I remember that Fly episode of Breaking Bad, and when it was over, people were calling it filler. You know, I thought it was interesting. Wasn't the best, but, you know, it deviated from the path a little bit. We see a man losing it, and it felt a little like a Twilight Zone episode to me, which is why I think I kind of dug it. But what's really funny is that I've been thinking of making this video for a few days now, and that Fly episode was one that I was going to bring up in this video. And until I looked up that episode on IMDb like 30 minutes ago, I had no idea that Rian Johnson directed it. I knew he directed some Breaking Bad stuff. I had no idea that he directed the Fly episode. He did not write it, he directed it. Interesting. Small world. And yes, of course, filler episodes are a thing, but I look at them in a different light. I think some of the biggest shit-filled filler diapers can be found in the show Lost. Lost became hyper successful. The networks pushed for more seasons, more episodes. The showrunners fought with ABC to end the show after 3 or 4 seasons, and that's kind of how you get what I would consider filler episodes. Not because of a lack of creativity behind the scenes necessarily, but a lack of vision and compromise from the studio heads. More episodes, more seasons, when the people making the episodes and seasons kind of want to pump the brakes a little bit, right? You have this uber successful show. The writers, the showrunners want to bring it to a close responsibly, and the bigwigs want to sell more cars, pills, and detergent. Sometimes it just feels like a show lost its way. Wood drastically underestimates the impact of social distinctions predicated upon wealth, especially inherited wealth. You got that from Vickers. Work in Essex County, page 98, right? Yeah, I read that too. Were you gonna plagiarize the whole thing for us? You have any thoughts of your own on this matter? Or is that your thing? You come into a bar, you read some obscure passage, and then you pretend you pawn it off as your own idea just to impress some girls and embarrass my friend?
Welcome to the internet!